NCAA football today from Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. The Swift Sooners will be led by the great Billy.
Not this time. You are looking live at the Schooner Pod for a special mini episode celebrating the return of OU Nebraska Sooners heading up to Lincoln. And let's be honest, I think the Huskers are about as close to rock bottom as it gets. Scott Frost fired after 3 games after an abysmal loss to Georgia Southern. But the Sooners rolling in. Brent Venables' first road game. I don't know. Could this be a trap game? Sometimes the night is darkest before the dawn. I don't know. Probably not this time. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got, as always, Jameson Maxwell, Ty Lee. We're here for a special mini-sode, as I said. And guys, first off, how are you feeling about this game? Has your excitement waned a little bit from the Huskers being absolute, dog water, Jameson?
Yes, it really has. It's a bummer because this is the situation where what do you have to gain from this game? In terms of the national spotlight, we've played 2 crap teams, one on ESPN Plus. I know Bobby likes to thought of the ESPN Plus package, but for the majority part, this is going to be the first time that the national media and public sees Oklahoma on a big stage, being this on Big Noon at 11 a.m. on Fox. And we have to play Nebraska, who just sacked their coach 3 weeks before his buyout, and their stock has never been lower. Honestly, what do we have to gain from this? If we crush them, they're just gonna be like, oh, Nebraska's a broken team that's already just crappy. I just it's a shame, really, because if Nebraska would have came through and actually won the games they should have, rather than lose to 2 really, really inferior opponents. One Northwestern team that lost to Duke this weekend, and then don't even get me started on Clay Helton, Georgia Southern. This would be a lot more fun and really create some eyeballs that we know college football in terms of voting and the college football playoff committee. There's a lot of eye test in this, and we really could have used a little bit of extra jewelry and bling with this W.
Yeah, Northwestern. Nebraska's done us absolutely no favors here by being absolute dog water. And to be fair, we didn't plan on this. When we scheduled them, Bo Pelini had them, making Big Ten titles. They were at least a 9-win team every single year, and now they're just completely in the dumpster. And it's weird thinking about this, but I remember talking about when Scott Frost got hired, how good is Nebraska going to be? Is this going to look good when we get to him? And now he's not even playing. He's not even coaching this one. So, yeah, it's definitely not a lot to gain from it. But I think, for a sect of older Sooners who remember the 90s where Tom Osborne just shellacked us by 70 every year, I think there will be some joy if the Sooners get a massive win here, but I don't know. Ty, what are you thinking about this game? Is there any hype for this at all?
I cannot believe that Jameson gave me the lead in that he did. This is what it's about, right? Jameson just gave you guys a whole lead in about how college. Yeah, for the listeners, I'm holding up some money. Jameson just gave you guys a whole lead in, and Bobby did too, about how it's not a meaningful game. They're not competitive. Everyone knows we're going to win the game, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go on my soapbox again, like I've been doing since before all of this NIL and everything else. College football is not about winning the game. I hate to break this to you. The NFL either, if you guys are not aware of this, right? It's entertainment. Nothing is gained. No money is made. Nothing is done by putting the ball in the end zone. You win the game, that does nothing. It's entertainment value and it's money. And here's the thing about this game. Even if Nebraska is not good, which they aren't, they are absolute garbage at the game of football. And I think everything else objectively, I do appreciate their commitment to their uniforms. I'm a big uniform traditionalist. I appreciate their commitment to uniforms. That's all they do good. The older Sooner alums, And because people our age, Nebraska has never really been. I think we played them in the last Big 12 championship before they moved on. What would that be, 2010? And we
Correct.
beat them. But really, in our lifetimes, Nebraska has never really been relevant. Shout out to Bo Pelini. He never should have left. He's like Nebraska's, he's probably their best coach they've ever had. But at Nebraska, but, the older Sooners. Right, here's the thing. Let me get back on track and wrap this up. The older Sooners and a lot of the donor base, a lot of the people that are given serious money donation wise to this program, grew up in a time where Nebraska was good. And I'm not talking about the 90s when OU was bad and Nebraska was still pretty decent, when Scott Frost was a player for a couple years at Nebraska. I'm talking about, a little bit, not to say that our donors and a lot of our people that are given serious money are necessarily old, but OU Nebraska, we're going back. We're talking about games that people said, this is the game of the century. This is one of the most competitive college football games of all time. We can't believe these two teams are being matched up in the regular season. They're going to face each other again in the postseason, back when the postseason was even more subjective and eye-testy than it is now. So it really, there's a whole big base at OU of people that no matter how good or bad Nebraska is their main rival. There's a lot of people of some of the older generations that see Nebraska as a more serious rival than Texas. And so maybe not a lot, but there's definitely a sect of people that still think that way. And they lament every single day and every single season the loss of this competition with Nebraska. Certainly, I think I consider Nebraska more of an OU rival than Oklahoma State.
I agree.
And I'm not just saying that to stir the pot with Cowboys, which I love to do, but there's a lot of people that care super deeply about this game. And beating Nebraska in 2022 is kind of like when we kicked around the Italians in World War II and then claiming that we beat the Roman Empire, right? It's not exactly the same. They're not what they used to be, but it was still nice to kick them around. We still had a good time doing it. So I wasn't there, but I hear that we did. Yeah. So
that's
fair
it.
enough.
That's the clip. Now there's your clip moment.
That's
Ty.
the clip.
That's
I love
the clip.
it. That needs to be a quote right there. Like, Tom, get on that, buddy. Get on that quote right there. We need that posted all across social media because that is gold. But no, you're right. This is a game that is purely nostalgia based. At this point, Nebraska has completely faded out of the public conscious in a way and is really just kind of a brand that hasn't been there. They are OU in the 90s. This is a literal husk of themselves, which is just really sad. Which is really sad because it's a fan base that absolutely deserves winning football. It deserves success because that's a fan base that's really damn good. But I will say I'm excited. I'm going to be in Lincoln this weekend, and I was at the last one in 2009 when Ndamukong Suh and all them completely swamped Landry Jones and crew. So I'm excited to go back. That was one of my favorite memories growing up with my dad. Just a truly great experience. So even just throw the results, throw the records out. I'm still pumped about it. But this is a team that's really on down times. This is as bad as it gets. So I want to kind of talk about Nebraska going forward, how this team is. So obviously Frost out. They couldn't even wait the extra 3 weeks to save half of their money on the buyout. They basically burnt millions of dollars just to get rid of him. In his place, wide receivers coach Mickey Joseph, the same coach who came in, coached up Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson at LSU. He has had a long tenure, been all around. I believe was the head coach at UCO for a while, coached at Langston in Oklahoma as well. But his biggest Oklahoma tie, and the thing I'm most nervous about, 32 years ago, he was playing He was playing as Nebraska's quarterback on Owen Field. And shout out to my guy Nick Tyndall for bringing this to my attention. Got pushed into the sideline on a late hit and broke his leg on a bench at Owen Field. So everybody on Husker Twitter is like, "This is Mickey Joseph's revenge game. That we broke the interim head coach's leg." Is that? I don't know about y'all, but that has immediately given me bad vibes about this game.
Wait, I might be totally fumbling the math here. Is he the quarterback that Scott Frost replaced at Nebraska?
It would have been 10 years prior to Frost.
Oh, okay. Never, I fumbled the math. So
No,
Frost played later than I thought. But that would have been really funny. That would have been a really funny.
That would have been a weird coincidence.
Cool.
But
not true.
God, that just spooks me even more about this, Bobby, because it seems like Mickey Joseph was like the guy that everyone respected in the locker room. There's a standing ovation, like everyone was in very high, mood. Even after this loss, that whenever it was announced that Mickey Joseph was going to be the interim head coach, like this Nebraska team was very behind it. That already was scary enough to me. Then you add in he has Oklahoma history, and then this whole broken leg thing. Man, I'm not pegging this as a blowout this weekend, guys. I'm a little bit nervous now about in terms of just not blowing them out, but maybe looking a little bit worse than I thought we were going to.
Yeah, because apparently this is a play that for years people have been like, OU is so dirty. They hurt Mickey Joseph. Like Switzer and those dirty bastards pushed him into the sideline. And because if you look at the replay, it's very obvious. Like it's a bad late hit. Obviously it's not like they went over and broke his leg like that, but like it's something that makes sense to kind of hold a vendetta against, I guess, if you're Nebraska. I mean, maybe other than the fact that it was 32 years ago, but this is a rivalry where you have vendettas. I still hear people complain about how Johnny Rogers' kick return in 1972, there was a clip right there and it was very obvious. And, I don't know. This is a type of rivalry where you hold on to that sort of stuff. So having a guy like him in charge that has the locker room, that's scary. That is scary. I would say that's arguably more scary than our coach almost is about to get fired. We need to win one to keep his job. We are ass, and this guy is really likable. Let's go out and try to play really hard for him. I don't know. I think that's more dangerous.
No, because here's the thing, right? He has his reasons maybe for a vendetta, but now he has challenged us because we'll use old analogies because this is an old rivalry. He's challenged us to an old Western duel, but he's shown up with the Nebraska Cornhuskers he's shown up with a water gun, okay? And we're showing up with a tank to this duel that he's challenged us to for reasons that he has, I guess, personally. I guess, I did OU play dirty? We probably didn't even have aluminum benches back then. So you're telling me he just some scrap wood was stronger than him. I don't know how you can blame us for that.
The 90s, Ty.
That's not 32 years ago was not the 90s. 32 years ago, because it's 2022, was at least the 89, right? Is my math correct? Or I guess 1990. Maybe math. It depends on when the game was
1980.
Yeah, so this was the 80s.
Mickey Joseph. Are we talking about when Mickey Joseph got hit?
Did that have aluminum in the 80s?
It was 1980.
He played it. He played in 88
when
to 91.
When did they discover aluminum?
Wait.
I don't think they had aluminum.
That's what it says on Wikipedia, and he's 54 years old.
Okay, so maybe I'm totally wrong here. I might be
is aluminum on the periodic table?
He injured his leg by breaking his leg early in the first quarter of the Oklahoma game in 1990? Yes, 1990 is what it is. Maybe you just had a typo on the 8 versus the 9. Great podcast.
See, aluminum is number 13.
Forgetting what math is. That's
aluminum
great.
Is 13 on the periodic table, which I think means they discovered it 13 years ago, which was 2009.
Oh, God. So if Nebraska fans get a hold of this, they're going to have a field day.
I don't think they had aluminum back then.
But anyways, so beef... So beef and bad vibes aside, let's break into the game here. All right, so let's just look at Nebraska. Obviously, they're a very flawed team. The offense, not awful. Casey Thompson can move the ball down the field a little bit, but the defense is atrocious. Jameson, looking at that defense, especially seeing what Georgia Southern did to him, do you think this is a chance for Jeff Lebby to really kind of uncork his offense and just kind of let loose on the Huskers?
My God, I hope so. I really do. But we said that last week versus Kent State. We said, like I said on the last podcast, if you haven't listened to our Kent State reaction podcast, go take a listen to that. we said it with Michael Penix. Like, this guy just destroyed Kent State's defense. We should just let loose. And here we are. We don't score until the very last minute of the second half. I mean, the first half. That's unacceptable. So, I mean, we've got a lot to prove in terms of our development for this game. Even if Nebraska has had bad showings on defense, we need to go out there and do what we need to do as an offensive line and as, the play callers on Jeff Lebby. I mean, the defense hopefully would come up with this new rejuvenation. I guess not hopefully, but they'll be newly rejuvenated as a team behind a leader that they believe in, and coming out for a big, rivalry game on a weekend. I mean, national television. You think that the defense would be fired up here too.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of energy there and a really big opportunity to prove ourselves. Ty, what do you think? Do you think this is a chance for the offense to really blow up?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not even trying to do this as a bit. If this comes down to a quarterback battle between Casey Clay Thompson and Dylan Gabriel, we're screwed. He's a better quarterback, and I've been known to hate on him, but at this point, I kind of wish we had him because I think he would fit our system because he can make decisions. Tune into our Kent State podcast.
He's joined me on the Casey Thompson. I love Casey. I'm not love.
Well,
I really do like Casey Thompson.
Put Casey Thompson in Dylan Gabriel's shoes. Going back to UCF, anyone can put up numbers in the situation that was happening there. And then I think Dylan Gabriel going from Texas and then up to Nebraska now. But that's a moot point for this. I think. I'm worried about our offense. I'm not worried about us winning this game. I think, their coach obviously has the locker room buy-in, but our coach does too. And that's the thing is you can make the argument that our coach has not been a head coach for more than 2 games, but their coach, I don't think he's ever been a head coach beyond the high school level ever. So I think
Langston.
Okay, so I think we win on the coaching front, certainly. I think we win on the motivation front. I know you can sort of hopefully, turn around some motivation within the Nebraska locker room, but I think they picked Scott Frost needed to go. I think I would hate to be in their AD's shoes, but I think they made a terrible decision because they could have it wasn't going to make a difference this game. I really don't think they could have saved themselves a lot of money by not firing him before the OU game. I don't know how you came across this decision. I guess my only assumption would be that their current coach, their current interim coach, I think he's going to do a great job, but I don't think they're planning on him as the guy that's going to stay there for long. So I guess maybe if you're going into the open market, you want to get him out of there as soon as you can and start to make your sale to Urban Meyer, to Brian Kelly, someone that's going to be open for a job here pretty soon.
The thing is, there are people are saying oh, they did it earlier, so the recruits would have kind of a better idea moving forward into early signing day. What's the difference between doing it October 1st? It's not going to be that big of a difference, and they're not going to know who the head coach is for probably the whole rest of the season. They're not going to hire some big name like Nebraska should do in the middle of the season just for them to pop in. Urban Meyer is going to hop in the middle of October to coach the rest of the Nebraska team. That's just not feasible. Colt exposed.
It depends. It depends.
For Big Noon, it can hop off and get the interview right there.
That's it's just silly. Like they have a bye next week, and then their next game is on October 1st. You're setting up this coach for a game where Oklahoma is sixth team in the nation and is favored to beat you by double digits. That's just not a good start for an interim head coach. And you could have just waited to after that bye week, and you could have fired him right after the Indiana game on October 1st. That's $6 million. I know I am a cheap person that I will attach a coupon to get me 20 cents off of my Amazon order every single time. And I'm the person who will wait 15 extra minutes on Lyft to get the extra $1 off for the wait and save. Trust me, I love saving money, but this is just common sense. $6 million.
And the season's dead already. I fully agree with you. I don't know. I mean, technically they could still make the Big Ten championship, but like they're done. They're done, man. This Nebraska team is, by all accounts, a dumpster fire. And I don't know if there's any way that I God love him, Mickey Joseph. I don't think he can do it. I think that's just too big of a turnaround. The only thing that worries me about him are vibes. The vibes seem like that could be an issue. How many times, and I've already said it, but like, I'm just going to say this. How many times, Jameson, have we gone into an OU Texas game where we're like, Charlie Strong is awful. He's done here. We're going to fire, or we're going to walk in and beat him and, get him sacked. Or the exact same thing with Mac Brown that one time. I don't know. I don't like the idea of a coach, fighting for his life. And then the inverse of like, this guy has an opportunity to make it big. We could really do it for coach. I hate it. But other than that, that's all I have in terms of like Nebraska worries. I'm not too worried about Casey Thompson. Obviously new staff.
Though.
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the. I know we love our sort of bits, but let's take a look at some of the actual threats that Nebraska is going to present to our team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jameson, what do you have?
I told you all this after the first game. I think that really I will develop my opinion of the defense as a whole after this game, because even though Nebraska's had some bad losses, they've shown a lot on offense where I can see some pretty good points here. Obviously, their defense is their biggest issue, but Casey Thompson has played pretty well so far this season, and they have two really damn good wide receivers that it's really going to test our cornerbacks. If you guys don't know about him, Marcus Washington, one of Casey Thompson's best friend, transferred from Texas, had 123 yards versus Georgia Southern. And then Trey Palmer, I'm pretty sure LSU transfer, I believe.
Correct.
An absolute stud. Those are two forces where it's going to be testing Jaden Davis and Woody Washington on the outside. This is not just this ordinary game where we play a team, we play like a Texas Tech and they only have like Eric Ezekama that we have to worry about. We have two really good wide receivers that we're going to have to scheme around here that are no joke.
Yeah, no. And, I mean, you're right. They still have some of that, that energy. We've seen what they can do against competition, like that, that Northwestern game, that up until that weird, awful onside, things were going pretty good for them. They looked pretty all right. Maybe not scary, but they looked all right. They looked capable. So, no, you're right. There are some weapons there. And Ty, obviously, you're a big fan of Casey Thompson.
Yeah, just now, game time decision. But when I started to consider who we had, I was like, oh, maybe he's not that bad of an option. But yeah, that's the thing we have to remember is, like Jameson mentioned, Trey Palmer, an LSU transfer, started playing at LSU in 2019, so he has tasted OU blood before. I think he only registered one reception in all of 2019. I don't think he ever played against OU, but he has tasted OU defeat before and knows it. And then Casey Thompson has never beat us, but he certainly has given us fits. In addition to, like Jameson said, Marcus Washington, their other main receiver. So they have some guys that OU fans should be wary of. I mean, Casey Thompson and Marcus Washington alone, just presenting that threat to us is something that's familiar, but something that we have defeated repeatedly in the past. And then Trey Palmer, it's more of a bit that he was on LSU, but their receiver coach on that 2019 LSU team that handily defeated OU with Joe Burrow and their super team is also Nebraska's interim head coach, which we didn't mention. So you guys talk about his time as a quarterback at Nebraska and his maybe hatred for OU. Maybe he got that out, or maybe he got his revenge back in his LSU time. But yeah, certainly there is obviously a lot to be a lot to wish for on this Nebraska team. Or if you're a Nebraska fan, I think the running back is also a transfer from Florida State, which is, like maybe impressive, maybe not. But this Nebraska team, there's a lot to be wished for still, but they certainly have some tools or some talent that they can use to give us fits if things work out for them.
Yeah, no. And as we saw last year, it's a team that, has the ability to get up for these type of games. They aren't, completely a bunch of bums. They went down to the wire with Michigan. They went down to the wire with Ohio State. They went down to the wire with OU and Norman. So, they're capable of it when they're motivated, when they're confident, and, maybe they get it figured out. Who knows? But we haven't really done a lot of this talking on the OU side of things. So, Jameson, I'll just say this. Which Sooner do you think has a chance to really have a big day here? Or actually, Ty, I'll switch it up. Ty, who do you think has a big chance of having a big day here?
I feel like this is kind of a weird one to go with, and I think this one a lot of people could argue. But here's my justification. I think the defense is firmly settled. I think people have already found their roles, found their little niche in the talent pool or the talent puzzle, we'll say, and they found where they fit. I think I think the running backs have found where they fit with each other and where they fit in the defense. I think the receivers have definitely already found where they fit and are really, really clicking. Super excited about them. I think that you can really make the argument that the people that still on OU's side have a name to make for themselves and have a reputation to establish or some hype to establish could be anyone on the defensive line or the offensive line or the offensive line as a unit. But I think if you were to pick one name, I think Dillon Gabriel. His stats have been good if you just look at the stats in the past couple games. But if you eye test it, go back to our Kent State preview that we just recorded and was released earlier this week if you're now listening on podcasts to hear some more talk about that. But I think Dillon Gabriel really has an opportunity here with his first Power 5 opponent as an OU player to really cement himself and say, no, I am an Oklahoma quarterback. Because he's come in, he's been an excellent addition to our team. We certainly wouldn't want to go without him with the people that we currently have. And he's been good. His stats have been pretty decent, but there hasn't been the eye test and there hasn't been that moment. There hasn't been that spark of Sooner magic from him yet. And I don't think that right now you would look at him or look at any of his clips and go, that is an Oklahoma quarterback. And we know we're very spoiled at Oklahoma when it comes to quarterbacks, but I think that especially against Nebraska, they're not that good this year. They have everything going against them, but they still have that brand name that OU fans can recognize and maybe a lot of people nationally can recognize, especially if they're a little bit older. I think that this is a perfect opportunity with Nebraska leaving a lot to be hoped for defensively for Dillon Gabriel to go out there and say, I am an Oklahoma quarterback. I transferred in, whatever else, but I've been doing okay, but now I'm going to live up to the expectation and the reputation of a quarterback at the University of Oklahoma.
It's his chance to take a jump from, like as Jameson has been describing him on previous episodes, a B tier guy to potentially an A tier, fringe Heisman guy. It's the big stage. Everyone's going to be watching it. I don't think there are any other good games on at 11 a.m. I know I usually make that joke about UTEP and Kent State, but this is going to be a big game. If not for nostalgia's sake, people will be watching this. So it's a chance for Gabriel to really take that star turn for sure. Jameson, who do you have as potentially making a massive, massive game here?
See, I disagree with you. I think the Texas State Baylor game is a game I'll be having my eyes on that 11 a.m. slot. Really lazy.
What channel is that? What channel is that on, Jameson? Is that
Fox Sports 1, baby?
Corn Cob TV. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say
I will. No, they got a good time slot.
There you go.
I will be watching Georgia absolutely dismantle Spencer Rattler for personal reasons.
Fair enough.
At 11 a.m.
Anyways, Jameson.
But yeah, I think Ty hit it. The game that the player that we're really looking to have a breakout game is Dillon Gabriel. I feel like the guys that we're kind of looking forward to this year of having like breakout performances have kind of either had a moderate performance or like a good performance these past couple of weeks. But Dillon Gabriel, even though he threw for 3 touchdowns and had a good completion percentage for his Kent State, it seemed like it just wasn't sexy enough. It seems like he should have done more. It seemed like he could have had 4 touchdowns, and that seems about right versus the Kent State defense. I wanted to put up a 4-touchdown performance against Nebraska. Go show the world that, like, hey, I understand this is a new era of Oklahoma football, and we, like Ty said, this is he wants to be like a University of Oklahoma quarterback that everyone likes to see, that puts up big numbers and is always in the front of national media. I still think he can be in that area. He might not be Heisman, like you said, Bobby, but I mean, in terms of the college football landscape, I think top 10 quarterback is very, very attainable because there's not too much quarterback talent in college football right now, and other than the guys at the top. I think Dylan Gabriel can do it this game. I think he's set up for success on a big stage, and he has the composure to do it. Let's just see if he makes his decisions fast, and his wide receivers and offensive line make it a little bit easier for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we all agree that Gabriel is the guy. This is his stage. But one thing I think the defense, against what is pretty solid competition, because no matter what Nebraska has been, obviously not great at times, but the offense has been a consistent good point for them. If a guy like Stutzman or Billy Bowman can have a really good performance and show like, hey, this OU team is different, I don't know. I think that's a really good opportunity for them to step up. Will they? I don't know. But I feel like the defense, this is an opportunity to really showcase any changes there for sure.
Honorable mention for Woody Washington as well, Bobby, I think on the defense. With the wide receiver play, we need to see like him and Jaden Davis have good games.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive test for both of those guys. But let's end this one with one question. So this rivalry, this is not the last we'll see of it for a while. Already another home and home scheduled for 2029, 2030, I believe. But I got to say, with the move to the SEC happening and some changes going on overall in the landscape of college football, let's say hypothetically OU definitely has a rivalry rotator every year. Are y'all going with OSU doing Bedlam? Or I don't know. Or are y'all like kind of old heads wanting to go with Nebraska? Because I know I have my opinion, but I don't know. So, Ty, if you had to have a non-conference rivalry game every season, who do you go with?
Yeah. If I had to pick between the two, because I'd prefer we just absolutely demolish Missouri every year just so they get an extra loss on their record. Because
kick out Missouri from the SEC just so we can have a non-conference with them.
Yeah, I think in total, yeah. Well, they shouldn't be in the SEC at all. They should
relegate them to the
should be in the Big East,
which is
they shouldn't exist anymore.
Our man Boat and Blake's gonna hear it about that K-State fade.
But anyways, yeah,
as he should.
If I had to pick between Missouri and Oklahoma State, certainly it's Oklahoma State. I mean, I'll make the argument all day that if we had to protect a rivalry, it is Texas all day. I do not care about necessarily Oklahoma State, but I love playing in Stillwater, and I don't think that they're a bit as big of a rival as OSU fans believe. OSU's only actual rival is Tulsa. I don't know why they keep trying to claim that we are, but yeah, I would prefer to keep OSU over Nebraska because in your scenario, and obviously I'm expanding the scenario that you've presented, I'm extrapolating outside of the box, but then we don't have an in-state, well, I mean, we wouldn't have an in-state rival anyways, but I'll preserve the in-state, and I love the atmosphere in Stillwater. I've never been to Lincoln, Nebraska for a game, but I think Stillwater, Oklahoma, when OU is in town, is one of the best atmospheres in all of it. Is just pure college football atmosphere, and I love it. I really, if I could choose to play Nebraska at home, Nebraska in Norman every other year, and then OSU in Stillwater every other year, that would be my cheating the question answer.
I think that's fair, and I'll go ahead and say it. I would absolutely take Nebraska every time. Not that I don't think Bedlam's great. I think it's a really good rivalry. But overall, to me, I think looking at these two rivalries, which one made college football lesser losing it? And to me, losing OU Nebraska, I think significantly impacted the sport overall. I think losing that game from Thanksgiving, was almost like it's like taking away the Iron Bowl entirely. It's like taking away Ohio State, Michigan in my opinion. If you look at it historically, not just forget about how bad Nebraska's been, forget about like everything pre 2010. Hell, having them not play every year when they moved to the Big 12 when they expanded it up from the Big 8, I think that was a massive loss. It is college football to its core. I know it hasn't been for a while, but because it's taken so long, I know it's taken a long time, and it hasn't felt like OU Nebraska anymore. I get it. I get the dissonance, but at its core, it's something that I think college football, really needs. I think it's a great game, and I don't know. I think there's something different to it. There's this weird respect between the two fan bases that I think makes the rivalry particularly special. A weird similarity to it. And I know maybe I'm chasing ghosts. I know maybe I'm chasing the past, but Nebraska, to me, I think naturally OU Nebraska should be a part of college football. It should be an active part of it, hands down, especially because Bedlam's only good in Stillwater, honestly, and we still win anyways. So,
well, it's still a good game sometimes, but
it's still a good game, but we still win.
I
find OU Nebraska way more interesting than Bedlam.
I do have a quick rebuttal before Jameson goes, but I think the OU Nebraska would be more exciting if Nebraska upheld their end of the bargain. And I think that they would fall off based on the decisions they've made. They were going to fall off either way. So I think this one would still be, as nationally as it is now, because it's an out of conference, marquee matchup, Big 12, Big 10 with all the conference moves and stuff. And it's still like, and that's because Nebraska. That's not because anything else. If Nebraska upheld their end of the bargain, and was even a top 25 team, perennially, say they maintain Bo Pelini, this game would be massive. This would be college game day, no question. This would be everyone across the nation is excited to tune in. Nebraska playing OU every year or not playing OU every year, I think is not the issue. It's the fact that Nebraska has fallen off. And I think whether they played OU every year or not, that doesn't change that the ball has been in their court and they have dropped the ball with their decisions. I think, if Nebraska was still good, I 100% agree with your argument, Bobby, but they're not. And I don't think that their being bad has anything to do with whether they played us or not.
Yeah. And I'll kick this to Jameson very soon, I promise. But I also think that Nebraska losing the OU rivalry every year, I think that took a lot from their identity. I think it took a lot from their national shine, because after they kind of faded away after, the Osborne years into the Solich years, that was their OU Texas. That was their thing. They didn't have another OU Texas. They had OU Nebraska, and that was their thing. OU still had OU Texas to lean back on. So to me, I think it really took them out of the national consciousness, and it was something that hurt them. So I think that had a small part to play in their downfall. But Jameson, I'm sorry, me and Ty have been going back and forth for a while. Your thoughts on the issue?
No, I was enjoying it. Here's the correct answer to this. If you could preserve the rivalry,
spare me.
Ty didn't like this. I think this is just a combination of what y'all are saying. If you had to say, if the question was, can I go back in time and made the Nebraska rivalry stay every single year since then versus Oklahoma State every single year for the foreseeable future, we'd go back and, change time and say Nebraska, we should be playing them every single year. That's the answer. But I'm sorry, that's not it anymore. And we can't try to scrap at that old, oh, but it was like this back in the day and there's so much history. But to be completely honest with you, that history will start to fade even more and more. And looking at it right now, we can see it. It's faded a lot. And in 10 more years, it's going to fade a substantial amount. When we play them again for our next thing, that Nebraska-OU rivalry is going to feel even farther away. But the reality, Oklahoma State's rivalry with OU will always be prominent due to location. There's going to be kids who go to school and they're going to have a couple of Oklahoma State fans, or if it's a predominant OSU fan school, there's going to be a lot of kids that have Oklahoma fans in their school. And that's where you start rivalries. It's these kids growing up and having this kind of bickering in grade school, middle school, high school, and then they grow up and those are their friends that they're having rivalries with. It's just Nebraska. They're not going to be Oklahoma and Nebraska fans going to school together and having that same kind of back and forth. It's hard to choose against an in-state rivalry.
I think that's a very fair point. The fact that, the past and the kind of inability to make it back Yeah, no, I think I think that's a very, very well, well thought out point. I think that's probably, despite me being a massive like history buff and, almost too much of a romantic of college football history. I think that's honestly the realist middle ground, honest point of what should be done.
Ty was scoffing at my little preface on that. Come on, look, I even got Bobby to turn a little bit.
No, and I'll even say this. I'll even say this too. Like, I think there's a matter of if that's even possible, if Oklahoma State even wants to continue the rivalry.
And they don't.
And they don't. So maybe that choice also in reality has kind of been made for us. So I don't know.
And then the whole argument of will we even have the ability to sustain a non-conference opponent into the expanded SEC? What's the SEC going to look like in the future? How many non-conference opponents are we going to have? Are we going to only have 2 non-conference opponents in the SEC in the new scheme of things? Like, there's conversations about that with scheduling. So it just makes things really kind of dicey to where, is it really strategic, even though it'd be fun to have in Nebraska every single year? Would it just be better to play Mercer in the Citadel like Alabama does? Well, yeah, I understand Alabama just played Texas, but I mean, still, you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I know, but like I look at like Florida State, Georgia Tech as and then obviously Clemson and South Carolina as 3 examples of it working.
All
and I
3
think
of the same state. That's the thing. We would love to take on OSU. If we kept OSU, OU, we would be fine. Even if we only had 2 non-conference opponents, there's no doubt we keep OSU. There's 0% chance we wouldn't accept that deal. The problem is
they've been open
they don't
to
want
it.
that.
Yeah, OU has said we want to keep it going. OSU, though, I think they're obviously pretty pissed. So,
but I just don't see a reality where we could have that. If Nebraska kind of sub in to be our Oklahoma State, that we lose just because there's no more Bedlam anymore. Yeah,
it's probably not likely. And honestly, from Nebraska's perspective, I don't know if they would go for it either, given the additions to the Big Ten with USC and UCLA coming in. So it's probably neither are probably a super imminent reality, but it's still fun to talk about. Honestly, I think our biggest rival or our biggest new rival probably going to be Arkansas, but that's a talk.
No.
I think Texas A&M might be a big talking
I think we
point.
might have 2 good ones.
No, that's a terrible.
Obviously,
that's a terrible
Texas.
take too.
We obviously have Texas.
I cannot believe you guys are forgetting. No, the A&M is not going to become our rival because they already have. They're excited for the return of Texas. I don't think anyone else has ever said this. It's hot take calling it now, but I think it has serious potential. Obviously, developing a serious rivalry takes decades and decades, but I think that you will start to see when we move to the SEC, I think we will gain a new rival, and it's going to be the LSU Tigers. They're close enough. There is enough recruiting. We're sort of at the same. A lot of LSU fans will make the argument that they're at a higher level than OU. They're very cyclical. We're very sort of continuous, not at that level. But I think we're competing for a lot of recruits. We're close enough. It is a doable drive to both places, and I think we'll end up playing I think Arkansas, you can say, oh, there might be a potential rivalry there, but Arkansas, I think even if OU diminishes when we go to the SEC, is not going to maintain the level that we're going to be able to maintain. I really think OU LSU is a potential rivalry that becomes like a nationally recognized rivalry, 10, 15, 20 years down the road after our move to the SEC. Because I think there's going to be a lot of contention. There's a lot of cool history there. A lot of the times we've met have been in the playoff and the national championship. And it's just we're so close. And I like A&M if they didn't already have a rivalry that they care much more about that they're gaining back. Because we played A&M a lot, in the past when we were in conference opponents. And they were sort of rivals, but it was just a chippy game. Arkansas, sort of similar. I guess some people consider that a rivalry, but I will die on my LSU potential new rivalry hill. And that one might be a better one than OSU or than Nebraska even. I think that the 21st century OU Nebraska will be OU LSU. Because I would love to see the Sooners. I'm so excited to see the Sooners in Death Valley.
That's going to be such an experience. We almost played them and then they ducked out to play Texas, but that is going to be such a moment, without a doubt. And like you said, obviously some shared history from 2003 to 2019 going back to 1950 as well. We won a title off them. So obviously a lot of shared history there, close enough. And, just going down the list, there's some good rivalry potential on the western side of the SEC, even Missouri, who I know Ty is probably just like, screw Missouri. I don't even want them to be involved here. But, Missouri, Arkansas, A&M, LSU's interesting. Obviously, Texas is still there. That's a way more interesting slate of rivals than the current Big 12 has, if you ask me.
I think the level of competition has to be factored in, though. Yeah. I think a lot of, realistically, a lot of SEC fans expect us to drop off. I would love for there to be some sort of developing rivalry with like the Mississippi schools, because that was, like Jameson always talks about, the kids arguing in school. I mean, that was my high school experience, going to a prep school in Mississippi. So, but I don't think that they're going to maintain the level of competition, and they're not going to be battling necessarily for like the same 4 or 5-star recruits that we are. There's really only one, keeping with sort of the SEC West division. And obviously we don't fully know what the SEC is going to look like when we get over there. But
I like that you slid in prep school to make everyone know, didn't go to.
Well, I don't want people to think I don't want people to think I went to a school that was developing said 4 and 5-star.
Oh my God.
Oh
no. I want to make it clear. Like we were like this podcast, like the dudes arguing, but like I wasn't like having this debate with like a 5-star that was committed to go play at Bama or Ole Miss or something.
Yeah, fair enough.
Something like that. So that's why I added that.
That's all good. It's all good.
I did have one quick note before we went.
Yeah, of course.
I looked up the news report. Nebraska's coach broke his leg on an aluminum bench. It says so in the news report, which is more embarrassing because aluminum is much softer than a hardened wood. So bones softer than aluminium, as the Brits would say. R.I.P. Queen Elizabeth.
There you go. I almost opened up this pod with a moment of silence to Queen Elizabeth, but
you did by accidentally being on mute.
At one point, yeah. Every mute this season is dedicated to Queen Elizabeth. Because why just have one moment of silence when you could have plenty scattered throughout an entire podcasting career? But
oh my God.
Anyways, yeah, Jameson, any final thoughts on that? I know Ty and I kind of went back and forth a little bit.
No, I kind of appreciate the whole rivalry talk at the end, even though, it's the Nebraska pod. I think just looping back kind of like the final point for this podcast, it's going to be a lot of fun either way. Obviously, we have the opportunity to kind of go through the history, and I'm sure the Big Noon kickoff will actually have some good stuff before as well. And I really hope that Oklahoma can show out and put some pieces together that were lacking in the first 2 games. Now that we're on national television and the eyes are on us right now, this is a time to go out and show out. And whether that mean we put in new pieces like, a Savion Byrd at left guard earlier in the game, or we play more Marcus Major running back snaps. I'm curious to see what will go moving forward, and hopefully we put on a good show for the national watchers. And with this team, I don't want to look too far in the future. I want to look good for those CFP voters that will be in the room at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you do whenever the other team doesn't put up their end of the bargain. You got to beat them like a drum. So anyways.
Yeah, I would argue I'd rather us win and maybe have a winning record, but then not pass the eye test for the CFP, because I don't know that I want to see this OU team facing the Georgia Bulldogs this year.
That's where we disagree. Do not get me started on this argument.
Maybe we are the first one out and we get to go whip USC or Michigan in
not only
in
that,
bowl game.
but also like at this point, who's getting in? Like contenders for the playoff are dropping like flies. At this point, they just might have to send OU out there. What are you talking about? I mean, even with the fringe guys,
Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan can do whatever they want against random
that
people.
4 spot is like, I have no idea. Like it's I don't know. And hell, Alabama, if Alabama doesn't turn it around, which they did last year, they had that 2-point win. That 2-point win at Florida looked very unconvincing, but they obviously figured it out. If they don't turn it around like they did last year, I could see them losing at Arkansas. I could see them losing at a couple places along that schedule.
Clip that.
But
please.
they probably will turn it around. So We'll see.
Clemson. I bet Clemson squeaks in because they're in a group of 5 conference.
They are in a Mickey Mouse conference. That could
well,
be done.
Miami maybe blows up A&M, adds that to their resume, and then wins their G5 conference. They'll get exposed in the playoff, but it's possible.
Well, not only
Kansas is undefeated right now.
Yeah, and Clemson's trip to South Bend is not looking that tough, anyways. So, all right. Well, this was kind of fun. This is great. Sentiments in 06. Can you get Uncle Lou on as a guest? Oh, I'm all in on that. Jameson, you and I were big fans of the good old. I don't know. What was that? College football scoreboard.
Well, yeah, and then Dr. Lou's segments, and then you'd have obviously the court cases. There's just the court cases, primetime TV. Don't even get me started on where college football TV has gone on. Joey Galloway just absolutely being a fool. Don't get me started. Let's just call this podcast before I say something bad about his intelligence.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a RG3.
Stupid, horrible things.
Yeah, and they're definitely changing his overall like win-loss record on the point spreads, because there's no way he has a winning record. He always
is. He's playing the villain now. He's gotten so many people against him in terms of like his bad takes early on in his college football announcing career, that now the producers are just like, okay, go crazy. Just say stupid stuff. Like USC's defense is one of the best in the country just after 3 pick sixes against Rice. Like, okay, he looked like an absolute fool. Stanford has a decent offense, but like, come on, let's just pump brakes here.
Yeah, we need to save the CFB commentator chat for when Blake is on, because I want to just mention the name Marty Smith and hear him go.
I love it. This kind of devolved into just a general college football OU talk pod, but I thought it was pretty fun. It was a good conversation, guys. So I think that's all we have.
If you're listening right now, go back and listen to the beginning of the pod. We talked some good Nebraska content.
Yes. Yeah. No, if you're just now joining in, I know we have like a solid amount of people popping in on live. Come back to this later. Let it render and load. We have a really solid Nebraska episode. I promise you it's there. But thank you all for tuning in live on YouTube. And thank you all for listening in on your podcast feeds, wherever it may be. So we'd like to thank you all for listening as always. And then shout out to DraftKings. Shout out to Raycon, and shout out to our partners at TPPN. We really appreciate it. So anyways, for me, Ty and Jameson, this has been the Schooner Pod. We will see you next week when we break down a big game against the Kansas State Wildcats. It's going to be fun. But until then, have a great week, everyone. Beat Nebraska and Boomer Sooner.